Divorce. That single word glowed on my phone screen, blinking at me like it was asking for confirmation. I wrote it in silence, standing in the half-lit hallway of our small suburban house in Los Angeles. The day was just beginning to break, the sun an orange line under the drawn blinds. I could hear her stirring in the bedroom. Rebecca, my wife, shifting the covers, unaware that on my phone, right beneath my typed message, lay a photograph from a chat titled Girls 18 Plus. It wasn't just a suggestive group chat. It was her chat, with her circle of friends, containing a picture that made the back of my neck prickle with a cold sweat. In the photo, I saw the reflection of a man's torso in the mirror. Herself, halfway dressed, taking the snapshot with her phone angle so he stood behind her. A bed was visible, undone sheets, a tangle of discarded clothes. A caption scrolled beneath. "See this? So easy. Poor Michael thinks I'm working late." Then laughing emojis, clinking champagne glasses. It was mocking. It was playful. And it was the moment I realized everything was about to change. I didn't scream. I didn't hurl my phone across the room. I tapped the screen off, quietly slipped it back into my pocket, and stepped toward the bedroom doorway. The floor creaked under my foot, and I paused. She had no idea what I just discovered. And even so, I found I had no immediate sense of anger. Just an expanding hollow inside my chest, as if someone had scraped out everything warm and left a cavern of cold, silent acceptance. A few hours earlier, I glimpsed her phone unlocked on the nightstand, lighting up with notifications. Sleep-addled, I saw the group chat name, Girls 18 Plus, and recognized the ridiculous label they used for their private exchanges. I remembered how she was always quick to delete messages or turn the phone face down. This time, I tapped it. In the past, I wouldn't. I respected her privacy, or maybe I was too afraid to see what lurked there. But something about her sudden distance these last few months, her biting comments disguised as jokes, the extended nights at the office propelled me to look. And I saw everything. Photographs, plans, confessions that, 2 nights from now, she planned to twist the knife deeper, wait until I tried to do something special, maybe propose a renewal of vows or some heartfelt gesture, and then crush me. The exact words, "I'll break his heart right after he does it." That casual cruelty sealed the numbness in me. So now I stood at the threshold of our bedroom. She was lying on her side. The duvet fell halfway off her shoulder, revealing the slight curve of her arm. Her hair was spilled across the pillow, that faint scent of expensive shampoo drifting in the room. I felt no impulse to brush it aside or to kiss her cheek. The only thing I felt was a quiet, focused sense of finality. I typed one more word on my phone. Now. Then I tapped save in my notes and walked away. I remember how we met, once upon a time, in a marketing seminar. She'd smiled at me in that conference hall, brushed her blonde hair behind her ear, and winked when I hesitated to take the seat beside her. We ended up laughing over coffee afterward. It all felt easy back then. Casual, flirtatious, and promising. I was in my early 30s. She was a few years younger. I was a manager at a logistics firm, with a stable, unremarkable life that I thought I wanted to share with someone. She was a marketing professional, bright, ambitious, but that first memory of her laughter now felt like a different lifetime. In the quiet, I replayed the image of the chat on her phone. The knowledge that she'd done more than just flirt behind my back. The humiliating detail. She'd sent pictures of them together, her and him, a man named Justin Cooper, if the texts were to be believed. They had an inside joke, or so the chat said, about how square I was, how safe. Safe enough to ignore, safe enough to betray. No, I thought, I wasn't ignoring. I was simply trying to love her. I placed my phone on the kitchen counter. There was an old framed photo standing near the fruit bowl, the 2 of us on a beach near San Diego. My arm around her waist, her head leaning against my shoulder, the ocean behind us. I recalled that day, how she insisted on taking silly photos, and how bright her eyes looked at sunset. I reached out and touched the frame. The dust on the glass left a smudge on my fingertip. I heard her footsteps approach, the quiet rustle of her robe. She came into the kitchen, blinking at me as though still half asleep. "Hey," she said softly. "You're up early." I turned my head, studying her face. I noticed the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the way her expression shifted like she was gauging my mood. Normally, she'd greet me with a quick smile or maybe a peck on the cheek, but that hadn't happened in weeks. Month, maybe. Now she settled by the coffee maker, turning it on, as if everything was normal. I said nothing, just watched her. I watched the flicker in her eyes, a hidden tension, maybe guilt. She seemed to sense something was off, but she didn't address it. Instead, she started rummaging for sugar. I asked quietly, "Did you sleep well?" She froze for a half second. Then she answered, too brightly, "Yeah, just a bit tired." She turned, forcing a small laugh. "Long week at work, you know." "Work?" The same excuse. I looked down at my hands. "Yes, your nights have been late." She poured coffee into her mug, stirring it slowly. Her wrist trembled almost imperceptibly. I'd never noticed that tremble before, but now it seemed obvious. Then she gave me a quick glance over her shoulder. "Is everything okay?" "You're quiet." I nodded, picking up the car keys. "Everything's fine. I have some errands." Her eyes flickered to the clock on the wall. "This early?" I offered no explanation. I simply slid my phone into my pocket and headed out. Behind me, I heard the coffee maker sputtering, and I imagined the swirl of confusion in her face. She didn't stop me. She never chased after me. I closed the door calmly, stepping into the crisp morning air. My car was waiting on the driveway, dew still clinging to the windshield. I sat there a moment, engine idling, thinking about what I'd discovered. My mind drifted to a few nights back, when I overheard her phone conversation through the thin walls. A laugh that didn't belong to me. Her murmur, "He has no idea," followed by a playful giggle. I'd pretended to be asleep, listening. It wasn't anger that washed over me in that moment. It was something deeper, a cold, methodical clarity that told me, I must leave. I must end this. But I wanted to see it for myself first, the final betrayal. Because up until the photograph, I had only half known. Even hearing her mocking me with her friends, I'd grasped at the hope that maybe I'd misunderstood. That morning, though, no illusions remained. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the roads carry me through the city. Los Angeles waking up, with its traffic and palm trees. The sunrise tinted the streets gold. I found myself in a parking lot of a closed diner, sitting behind the wheel, phone in my hand. I reopened the chat. The texts from her girlfriends were still there, archived. Teasing messages about how Rebecca found a real man this time, accompanied by winking emojis. One friend wrote, "So, is it official? You're dumping Michael after the romantic dinner." And Rebecca's own reply, "Yes, right after he tries to do something sweet. I want that ring, but I'll crush him." Lol. I breathed slowly. The phone screen lit up, the photo on display again, her and Justin, half-dressed, broad shoulders, a muscular chest, his hand around her waist in a way I recognized from our own earlier intimacy. The text scrolled. Damn, that was a night. #loving life. I closed the app. My reflection showed in the black screen. Eyes hollow, jaw set. I was older than I'd been when we first married. A few lines across my forehead, thinning hair above the temples. But I hadn't realized that the marriage itself was hollow until these last months, or maybe it was me who was hollow. Eventually, I started the car again, heading nowhere. When I came back home, it was nearly noon. She was in the living room, phone in hand, quickly pressing the screen when I walked in. She looked startled, but forced a bright tone. "Oh, you're back. I was just texting some friends." I gave a neutral nod. "Of course. How's everything?" Her eyes were guarded. "Everything's fine." I was. She hesitated. "I was wondering if you wanted to go out for lunch. It's Saturday after all. I paused, gazing at her. A memory came to me. Years ago, she used to say, "Michael, we have to do everything together." And I used to laugh at how enthusiastic she was for joint plans. Now it sounded more like she was trying to hold on to normalcy. I set down my keys. "Lunch? Sure." My voice was quiet. "Let's do that." She blinked as if caught by surprise. Then she put on a hesitant little smile. "Great. There's a place downtown I've been meaning to try." I didn't argue. Instead, I headed to the bedroom. While I changed my shirt, I saw her phone lying on the dresser. It was locked again. The lock screen showed the time, an innocuous wallpaper of a tropical beach. I realized she must have changed the passcode, or it had been locked automatically. I felt no urge to break it. I had the proof I needed already. She chose an upscale bistro near her workplace. The interior was sleek, glass windows overlooking a busy street. She offered polite small talk, something about a new marketing project. I listened, responding in measured tones. Then I asked, "Is Justin part of that new campaign?" Her expression twitched. "Justin? What do you mean?" I shrugged. "I heard you mention a Justin a few weeks ago." I wasn't sure if he was a client or a coworker. She blinked rapidly. Yeah. He's, sort of a freelancer, I know. We might bring him in for design work." She tried to smooth her features, but there was a slight edge in her voice. "I haven't decided yet." I nodded, keeping my face blank. "Right. I heard you talk about him to your girlfriends." I was curious. Her lips parted, just a fraction. "You did?" I took a slow sip of water, feeling her tense across the table. "Yes," I said calmly. "You always used to ask me about my day, remember? All those questions. Where I was, who I spent time with, if I was happy with my colleagues. Do you recall that, Rebecca?" She swallowed. "Of course. I was concerned about you." "Exactly." I set the glass down. "That's why I'm returning the favor. I care about the details. So, do you like him? As a professional?" She let out a short, nervous laugh. "Sure. He's decent at what he does, I guess." She fiddled with her napkin. I saw the tension in her jaw. Let's talk about something else. How's your job?" I answered with a non-committal shrug and fell into silence. She looked around, tried to engage me in chat about the decor, the menu, but eventually gave up. Even so, I didn't relent. Halfway through the meal, I fixed my gaze on her and said, "What do you think about Divor?" I cut off, letting the question hang in the air. I watched her carefully. She froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "Divor? See? Why? Why are you asking?" "Just a thought," I said softly. "We used to speak about everything, including how you once asked me if I was sure about forever. That was a big question for me. Now, years later, I wonder if you've changed your mind." I saw her throat bob, the color draining from her cheeks. She forced a smile. "Michael, where is this coming from?" I looked down at my plate. I pushed around a piece of chicken with my fork, then slowly set it aside. "It's a logical question, Rebecca. People drift apart sometimes." She exhaled, setting her fork down with a clatter. "Is there something you want to tell me? Because you've been acting off." I met her eyes. "Maybe, but not here." For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The tension pressed down, thick as oil. She broke the gaze first, picking up her water glass, then gulping it down. I watched the movement of her throat, the muscle twitched there. Something flickered behind her expression. She was uncertain, maybe even scared, but trying to keep the mask of normalcy for the waitstaff that bustled around us. On the drive home, we barely spoke. She gripped the door handle, eyes glued to the window. At one point, she reached for the radio, thought better of it, and folded her hands in her lap instead. The city rolled past us, cars merging in and out. I had the sense that she wanted to ask me more, challenge me on my mood, but she was wrestling with her own guilt or confusion. When we arrived home, she headed straight into the house, dropping her purse on the sofa. I locked the car, lingered a second under the warm California sun, and then followed. I found her pacing in the living room, arms crossed under her chest. "Michael," she said quietly, "if something's bothering you, talk to me." I stood by the doorway. "You want me to talk?" My tone was calm. "All right. Let's talk about your phone. The group chat with your friends. Girls 18 plus. The messages you send there." Her face tightened. "You looked at my messages." I said nothing, just observing the panic bloom in her eyes. She tried to gather herself. I can explain. They're just jokes. You know how girlfriends can be." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Jokes about me being too predictable, too safe. Jokes about how you have a real man now. Jokes about—" I paused, swallowing the bitterness that threatened to rise. "About breaking my heart the moment I proposed something special." She paled, stepping back. Her arms dropped to her sides. "Michael, it's not what you think." I gave her a moment to elaborate, but she couldn't seem to form the words. She started shaking her head, eyes darting to the side, searching for any possible escape. I took a step forward, but calmly. "Rebecca," I said, "you once asked me, back when we were dating, if I would ever cheat on you. Remember how you tested me with questions, watched my face, demanded honesty?" I gave a small tilt of my head. "So I'm asking you now, the same way you asked me then. Did you sleep with Justin Cooper?" Her breath caught. She glanced at her phone, which was on the coffee table, then back at me. "Michael, please, let's answer me," I said softly. "Yes or no. Did you?" She hesitated. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but I saw something else there, anger at being cornered. "Okay," she whispered, voice cracking. "Yes, but it's complicated." I nodded as though ticking a box. "Complicated how?" She started to speak, then trailed off. Her lip quivered. "You stopped paying attention to me. You were always so distant." I felt invisible. Justin listened. He cared. The words flooded out, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I needed to feel alive, Michael. And you. God, you're always so controlled, so boring." I took a deep breath. It didn't sting the way it would have if I were blind to it. Her accusations only reverberated in the numb space inside me. "I see," I said quietly. "And you chose this way to solve it." She didn't reply. Her tears spilled, but I felt no urge to comfort her. I recalled the phone messages. The teasing, the glee in her words. "He's so clueless," she typed about me. "He has no idea." Even if her tears were genuine at this moment, I'd read her mind in that chat. I knew the side of her that had reveled in my humiliation. I turned away, heading for the bedroom. She trailed after me, voice trembling. "Michael, I don't know what to say. I never wanted to lose you. This just happened." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out to see a text from my boss, some mundane request for Monday's schedule. I let it pass, ignoring the anxious flicker in her eyes as she watched me. Then, in a calm tone, I said, "Rebecca, I need you to pack a bag." She gaped at me. "What do you mean?" "I'll leave, or you leave. But we can't keep sleeping under the same roof." I spoke with the same measured clarity as if I were discussing a business matter. "Not anymore." She started sobbing then, a broken sound that would have once shattered me. But all I felt was a cold acceptance. She stumbled forward, hands reaching for me, but I stepped aside. Her tears dripped onto the hardwood floor. "Don't do this," she murmured. "Let me explain." I sighed softly. "You already did." That evening, I stayed in the car for hours, parked down the street. At times, the quiet in the vehicle was almost suffocating, but it was better than hearing her wail behind those walls, or hearing her call someone. Maybe Justin, maybe a friend, trying to piece together a defense. I watched headlights pass by, each one illuminating the interior of my car for a second, revealing the lines on my face, the weariness under my eyes. When it grew late, I looked at my phone. I opened the Notes app and read my typed word, divorce. Then below it, I typed a short letter to her, though I doubted I'd ever let her read it. I used to think we were one. I see now that you needed something else, someone else. That's fine. I'm not going to scream or beg. If you want him, take him. But I can't let you keep me in the dark any longer. I stared at those words. My finger hovered over delete. Then I shrugged and kept them, locking my phone again. Later, I drove to a cheap motel a few miles away, the kind with flickering neon signs and an office that smelled of stale coffee. The clerk barely looked up as I paid for a single night in cash. The room was small, with an old TV, musty carpet, a battered dresser. But I didn't care. I just needed space, somewhere that wasn't home. I dropped onto the bed, still dressed, and stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent light flickered ominously, as though wanting to fail. Maybe it was a fitting metaphor. I didn't sleep much. Thoughts circled in my head, memories of how she used to brag about our relationship to her friends. Michael is so stable. He's my rock. Yet behind that, she must have grown bored. Maybe she wanted more excitement, more sparks, more of someone like Justin. Exotic, impulsive, flashy. My phone lay on the side table, silent except for a single missed call from her. I let it ring out. I realized something as I stared at the stained ceiling. I wasn't furious. I wasn't trembling with rage. A younger version of me might have snapped or confronted Justin physically. But now, I felt only a calm, almost detached sense of betrayal. It gnawed at me, cold and methodical, but it didn't erupt in outward violence. Maybe that's how heartbreak matures with age. It crystallizes into a quiet, lethal conclusion that the person you trusted is gone. I woke at dawn, my eyes gritty and a dull ache pulsing behind them. I showered in the tiny stall, the water lukewarm. Then I dressed in yesterday's clothes and stepped out onto the empty motel balcony. Los Angeles lay in the distance, layers of haze and sunlight. I wondered if she was still at home, or if she'd run off to him for comfort. The thought didn't move me much either way. In the parking lot, I checked my phone. Multiple messages from her. Please come back. We need to talk. I'm sorry, Michael. Where are you? I just locked the screen. Then I sent a short email to my immediate boss, stating I'd be taking an unscheduled leave for a few days. Family matters. No details. After that, I drove to a hardware store, thinking I'd buy boxes to pack my things, but found myself wandering the aisles, numb. I wasn't sure if I wanted to pack, or if I should let her do that. Maybe I'd just leave everything behind. I paused in front of a row of padlocks, ironically considering how we once locked ourselves to each other, figuratively, with vows. Now it seemed the padlock was broken, the vow undone. That afternoon she called me again. This time, I picked up. I listened silently as she stammered out tearful apologies. Michael, please, come home. Let's talk. I answered quietly. You want to talk? Yes. Please. All right, I said. But let's be honest this time. No more lies. She breathed a shaking sigh of relief. I promise. I arrived at the house around 3. She was in the living room, still wearing the clothes from the previous day. Rumpled blouse, leggings, hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. On the coffee table lay a half-empty glass of wine. She'd probably been drinking to steady her nerves. When she saw me, she stumbled forward, tears brimming again. Michael, I don't know what got into me. Justin was there, he was fun, and I was bored, and I'm sorry. I never intended for you to find out like this. I studied her face, calm as stone. But you did intend to break me afterward, I reminded. You wanted me to propose something romantic, so you could humiliate me. That's what your chat said. I kept my voice quiet, but each word was an incision. She trembled. I was angry. Okay. I felt neglected. You never told me that, I said. You never said, Michael, I'm dying here. I need your attention. Instead, you decided to cheat and laugh about it with your friends. She flinched, tears running freely. I was wrong. We stood there for a long moment, the hush thick around us. Finally, I asked, did you love him? She wiped at her cheeks. I don't know. I nodded. Then I glanced around the living room, noticing the little details that used to be part of our shared life. The photos on the mantel, the pair of slippers near the couch, the throw pillows she liked to arrange just so. All of it felt foreign now. Then why did you do it? I pressed. For a thrill. For a new sensation. She let out a sob, a hand clasping over her mouth. I can't give you a good reason. That's the only honesty we have left, I said quietly. She stumbled closer, trying to put her hand on my chest. I allowed it, feeling the weight of her palm, but it didn't stir warmth in me. It felt like a stranger's touch. I don't want you to leave, she whispered. I covered her hand with mine and gently moved it aside. Rebecca, you've already left me, I said, voice steady. Somewhere along the line, you walked away from our marriage. She let out a shaky breath. What are we supposed to do now? I thought of the letter I typed in my phone, the single word in my notes, the final step. But before I answered, a knock sounded at the door. She stiffened, eyes darting to me. We both stood still. Another knock, more insistent. Who is it? She called, her voice cracking. A muffled reply. Rebecca, it's me. That voice. A male voice with a hint of a Latino accent. Justin Cooper. I glanced at her. Her face went pale as ash. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then I stepped forward and unlocked the door. He stood there, tall, tanned, fit, hair styled with care, wearing a fitted t-shirt. He had a bouquet of flowers in one hand. His expression froze when he saw me. He glanced past me to her. Hey, He swallowed. Rebecca, you said. She said a lot of things, I murmured calmly. But I'm here. And you're here. So let's talk. He shifted awkwardly, gripping the flowers. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know. I cut him off gently. You did, actually. You knew she was married. You just didn't care. I took a step aside, letting him pass if he wished. He stayed put in the doorway, as though uncertain. Come in or stay out there. Doesn't matter. But he wanted her, so here she is. Behind me, Rebecca let out a mortified groan, tears refilling her eyes. Justin, why did you come here? He shook his head, swallowing. You said you were breaking things off with him this weekend, that you'd be free. I wanted to surprise you. Apologize for pushing you too fast. I thought maybe we could. He trailed off. I stood back, crossing my arms over my chest. Sounds like you two have a lot to discuss. Michael, Rebecca said, stepping toward me again. This isn't how. I never wanted you both to be in the same room. Is he what you want? I asked, ignoring her interruption, looking directly at her. Tell me now, because I won't stand in your way if your heart is set on him. She looked from me to Justin, tears shining. The bouquet drooped in his hands. A thick silence spread as she wrestled with what to say. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. I nodded as if that was answer enough. Then, in a measured tone, I said, Then I'll make it simpler. I'm filing for divorce. Pack your things or I'll pack mine. Doesn't matter who leaves. But this is done. She made a choked sound. Michael? No. Justin stood uncertainly, looking from me to her. Maybe I should. He gestured vaguely to the door. He set the flowers on the floor as though they were now useless. I turned to him. Yes, maybe you should. This conversation is no longer yours. He gave Rebecca a final helpless glance, then hurried out, the door clicking shut behind him. The silence afterwards was total. She pressed her palms to her face, sobbing, but I couldn't find any sympathy. My chest felt tight, but it was the same cold tightness that had been forming since I saw that photo. I waited, letting her cry. Then I moved to the couch and sat, exhaling slowly, as if after a battle. She spoke in a quavering whisper. You can't just walk away like this." I turned my gaze on her. "I can. And I will." She collapsed into the nearby armchair, her shoulders trembling with silent sobs. I watched her, remembering how once I would have rushed to comfort her. Now, that instinct was gone, replaced by calm acceptance of my decision. "Rebecca," I said slowly, "I asked you the same question you once asked me, years ago. Would you ever betray me? You said never. Remember that?" She gave a tiny nod, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Well," I continued, voice even, "now we have our answer. And if you think I'm going to stand by it while you humiliate me further, you're mistaken." She stared at me, speechless. Finally, she managed, "I'm so sorry." The next day, I made arrangements. I started with phone calls to a lawyer. I took some boxes from my office. My sense of methodical calm spurred me onward. She asked for more time, for discussions, for therapy. But I kept seeing the words from that chat in my head. "I'll break his heart as soon as he proposes." That mocking laughter. I was done giving second chances. I spent that night in the car again, parked by a local grocery store. The hush around me was absolute. My phone buzzed with messages. Hers, her friends, even my sister, who was told by Rebecca that I'd gone crazy and left. I calmly texted back to my sister, explaining the situation in minimalist terms. Then I turned off my phone for the night. On Monday morning, I showed up at the house with a moving truck. She stood by the kitchen doorway, eyes puffy from crying, wearing an oversized sweater. She tried to speak, but I only gave a small shake of my head. I began packing my things, a few suits, some personal belongings, my old papers, the photograph albums I cared about. She watched in silence, tears glistening. Halfway through, she whispered, "I'll go. You keep the house. I can't stay here." I glanced around. "Fine. Then you pack. I don't want this place anyway. Too many memories." She swallowed, blinking wet lashes. "Michael, I love you." I closed a box, taped it shut. "No," I said simply, "you loved how predictable I was. How safe. But that's not me anymore. Not for you." She sagged onto a chair. I hoisted the box under my arm and headed outside. The warm California sun hit my face, but it did nothing to thaw the frost inside me. I moved into a short-term rental in the next town. A small apartment, barely furnished. The next weeks were a haze of legal forms, phone calls, dividing assets. She tried to call me repeatedly, leaving voicemails of tearful apologies, claimed she was confused, that Justin meant nothing. I rarely replied. The times I did, I kept it formal. "Speak to the lawyer about that." During that time, I heard rumors. People at her workplace said she'd taken a leave of absence. Some mutual acquaintances tried to invite me for drinks, to ask what happened. I politely declined. I had no energy for retelling the story. I carried my coldness around like a shield, sustaining me. In the quiet nights, I sometimes found my chest aching, a deep longing to have back the simpler days. But then I'd recall that photograph, that group chat, and the numbness returned. Eventually, she insisted on one last meeting to talk in person. No lawyers, no friends. I agreed, if only to close that chapter. We met in a public park, near a pond with ducks gliding across the surface. I arrived first, leaning against a tree, arms folded over my chest. She showed up wearing a black turtleneck, hair in a ponytail, no makeup. As though she'd surrendered the usual attempts to impress. She came closer, hesitating as if she didn't know whether she could stand next to me. I didn't move, only nodded once in acknowledgement. "So," I said, "you wanted to see me." She reached out a trembling hand, then retracted it. Michael, I messed up. I lost sight of what mattered. I was so focused on excitement, on feeling desired, that I forgot what we had. Or maybe I took it for granted. She paused, searching my face. I remained silent. Please understand, she went on, her voice raw. It wasn't all lies. I did love you. And I still do. I was stupid, and now I can't undo that. I watched a duck waddling on the grass, unconcerned with our drama. Then I quietly asked, why did you mock me to your friends? That's the part I can't wrap my head around. She grimaced, tears brimming. Because I was angry at you for not being what I fantasized. My friends egged me on, telling me I deserved more. I got caught up in that. It was petty and cruel. I nodded slowly, feeling the ache in my temples. Well, you got your excitement. Did it make you happy? Her eyes flickered with shame. No. I inhaled the crisp air, letting it fill my lungs. We can sign the papers next week. After that, do what you need to do. I won't chase you. She rubbed her arms, tears on her lashes. Michael, is there any chance to fix this? I shook my head. We're too far gone. She sobbed, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. I watched, not interfering. After a moment, she whispered, I'll always regret it. Maybe, I said, but I won't stay to see if you change. She bowed her head, shoulders trembling. I stepped back, not wanting to linger. Take care, I said softly, then walked away, leaving her by the pond. I didn't turn around. In the following weeks, the divorce proceedings were set in motion. My lawyer handled most of it. I kept my interactions with her minimal, through text or email, verifying signatures. She moved out of the house, apparently renting a place across town. Meanwhile, I tried to adapt to my new routine. Work was a distraction, and the only respite was the quiet I found in early morning runs, feeling my heartbeat in my chest, letting the cold morning air burn my lungs. At night, in my small rental apartment, I thought about the future. I thought about how I'd once planned to grow old with her, buy a house near the coast, maybe adopt a dog. All of that was gone. The tears never really came. Instead, I wore my grief like an invisible cloak, heavy but silent. Sometimes, I'd allow myself to remember those first months of our relationship. The laughter, the teasing phone calls, her hand in mine. Then I'd remember the text messages about me being clueless, and the humiliating plan to break my heart the very night I tried to propose something special. That memory would shut down any lingering nostalgia. Days turned into weeks. The final hearing approached. I saw her once more, across the hallway in the courthouse, waiting for her turn. She wore a conservative blouse, hair neat, no bright lipstick. She spotted me and gave a tentative nod. I returned it coolly. The judge called our case. We stood side by side as the formalities played out. The quiet finality of the judge's approval sealed it. With the stroke of a pen, we were undone. We stepped outside. The bright sunlight seemed harsh, slicing through the bleak corridor. We paused together, momentarily uncertain. She gave me a watery smile. I'm sorry, she whispered one last time. I watched her for a second, searching for any trace of the woman I once loved. I found only echoes. Goodbye, Rebecca, I said quietly. She walked away, her heels tapping on the polished floor, the sound fading with each step. I stood there, exhaling a long breath, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease. This was it. The end. A few weeks later, I found myself driving north along the coast, the wind ruffling my hair through the open window. I'd saved up some time off. I needed to vanish from everything, to let the salt air cleanse my thoughts. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. I glimpsed the rolling waves of the Pacific to my left, and let the horizon guide me. At a rest stop, I parked overlooking the ocean, sea spray drifting in the breeze. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old pictures, and paused on one of Rebecca and me. We were smiling at a baseball game, wearing matching caps, arms around each other. It felt like looking at strangers. My finger hovered over the delete button. Instead, I set the phone down. I stepped out of the car, onto the rocky beach. The waves thundered against the shore. Gulls circled overhead. My shoes sank into the wet sand as I walked, each step feeling heavier, but also freer, if that makes sense. The sky was wide and bright, shimmering with the promise of a new day that didn't include her or that betrayal. I felt the cold wind on my face. I embraced it. Because in that chill, I recognized that coldness can be an emotion, too, a powerful one. It was a reminder that pain can burn hot or freeze you from the inside, but either way, it changes you. I was changed, and I accepted that fact without regret. I picked up a smooth stone from the shore, held it in my hand, then flung it into the ocean. I watched the ripples expand until they vanished, swallowed by the vastness of the water. Letting go is like that, I thought. A single throw, a tiny disturbance, and then the sea reclaims its surface. I stood there for a long time, the wind tugging at my jacket. I'd lost a marriage. I'd lost a life I once cherished. But I'd also lost the illusions that came with it. And in that empty space, there was a strange sense of relief. Eventually, I turned back to the car. The divorce was finalized. The heartbreak had run its course. I'd walked away without yelling, without dramatic vengeance. But perhaps my calm, unwavering departure was the greatest blow of all. A quiet finality that left her alone with her regrets. I didn't know exactly where I'd go from here, but I knew it would be somewhere far from the echo of those mocking texts, that bedroom with the undone sheets, that hush of humiliation. I'd find a new path, a new place, and slowly learn to let warmth find me again. For now, the cold wind off the ocean was enough. It was all I needed to remind myself I was alive, and that I had survived. So I started the engine, pulled back onto the highway, and drove north, letting the distant horizon pull me onward. A final exhalation, a final goodbye. And in the quiet hum of the engine, in the vast emptiness of the open road, I found a small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, the next chapter of my life would be defined not by betrayal, but by the resilience I'd found in its wake.